Streaming, are we good? 5x5, 10:4, okay. Sure. So this is On the Con. Thanks for attending for some of you for a long, long time. We wanted to give a little background about what we're doing and the intent of this. So when we started ShmooCon, what?
I'm on it.
Okay.
You, come here.
Who are you talking to?
Matt.
Is there a lost cat somewhere? Like, come here. I just called Matt like I called my cat, and I think that's an HR violation because he works for me. So, anyway, so we run On the Con because we try to be transparent about how we run the conference. ShmooCon, ShmooCon Logistics LLC, as we'll get into in a minute, is a for-profit company on the books. We don't really try to make money. We just don't want to be a nonprofit. It's a real pain in the butt. So what we do, as part of the conference is provide this information from the con, this transparency about everything from money to our processes to the people involved and whatever, for a variety of reasons. One, we want to be a trusted party in this transaction, right? We want you to believe that we have the best interests of you and the community at heart. And if you disagree, we'll show you what we did and we can have a constructive conversation about it and try to make the conference better and more productive in the community. And two, there are lots of conferences out there. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's one starting. I mean, domestically in the US, there's like, 350, 400 security conferences a year. Some of them are big names funded by big vendors. Lots of them are little things people doing in their spare time in little towns and cities across the nation. And we realized early on when we started ShmooCon, we were learning lots of lessons that other people had learned as well, and there wasn't a good forum to share that information. So we captured this for posterity. Of all the things that we capture and post on the website, this is one of the talks we care the most about, because we want people to be able to reference this later and say, I want to run a conference in Omaha, what do I need to do, things work, what don't. Well, we like to consider this a resource for, how to run a conference in a box, if you will. So that's On the Con. We'll take questions at the end. If you have questions during, feel free to ask. But in general, we just try to push through this material too, just so that it is all recorded and online. Yes? You're not switching places with anybody?
No.
No, okay. This is good. No, jeez. Anyway, so ShmooCon Logistics LLC, incorporated in Maryland. Like I said, how many people have been involved in a nonprofit? Like from an organizational perspective, was it fun? Yeah, right. So, yes, universally, you get them set up, and then there's the setup pain, but then there's the ongoing maintenance pain. You have to have meetings for the sake of meetings, and there's filings, and there's all this other kind of stuff. To run an LLC, you need to be alive and pay your taxes. So you got two of the three right there. The death comes later. So, it's easy, and we figured while we're not a nonprofit, we'll share all the information with you and at least be as transparent as they normally are, at least with you all, not necessarily the government. We plan everything by email and phone calls. There's no IRC channels. There are periodic get-togethers with locals, but there isn't like we don't sit around all day long jamming in IRC and all that kind of stuff. Heidi spends a lot of November and December and part of January on the phone and hunched over a computer doing email and email and email and email. And that's worked well for us. That's the way we've done it from the beginning. And I know other conferences have planning meetings and organizational meetings. Everybody gets together in IRC, and that's great if it works for you. I've been involved in random community-driven events for almost 20 years now. And I found that the kind of more pomp and circumstance you put around it with like meetings and that kind of stuff, you tend to be less and less productive. I once had a mentor in college that told me, every group needs a maniac, right? Every group needs one person who's just going to do the shit that needs to get done because nobody else is going to do it, or be the person of last resort, and that's Heidi. So she's like the person of last resort. If we task somebody with something and they don't do it, it falls down to her, and we figure out a way to get it done. So Heidi's the maniac that runs ShmooCon. So first of all, let's hear it for Heidi. Woo! I called my wife a maniac publicly. I'm going to need a room tonight if somebody's got some space. Let's appreciate it. We do use mailing lists for kind of the subgroups, selection committee and stuff like that, just so you don't spam everyone. It's actually kind of funny for the labs. There's a labs attendee list, and the traffic for that list is just a frickin' step function. So like about 2 weeks before the con, the list gets created. There's like a thread like introductions, and it rapidly devolves about the conversations about cherry vodka and everything else. Talks about the labs, talks about labs, cons happen, whoop, disappears and goes off. Some poor soul got into the labs this year, went on vacation, got subscribed to this and came back, and in the first week there was like 635 emails, and he was like, what the hell are you people doing? Like, he had to read through all the trolling and everything else, so that's by far the highest. Seriously, they're trolling each other. I even got confused. One guy's like, this is a lead 5-level building, so that means there could be no inadvertent RF emanation, so everything has to be fiber in order to be friendly to the environment. I'm like, what the hell is that? Like Googling lead level 5, you know. Turns out it's not a thing. But Google now autocomplete it because all the people in labs looked it up. And then planning for next year starts Monday, then it ebbs. It spikes up again sometime around October when we freak out and realize ticket sales are November 1st. There's some in between, but definitely the heart rate picks up around October and settles back down on Monday. So. We want to talk about staff. So there's about 75 volunteers involved in putting on ShmooCon. Again, as a word of advice from someone who's been involved in this kind of volunteer run effort since when I was a little kid. My parents were involved in lots of weird community things like this. You got to keep the volunteers happy, right? People aren't going to volunteer out of guilt. They're going to volunteer because they want to do it. Right? People come to our house and they help out ahead of time. They come here and work and whatever, and they've got to get something out of it. It's got to be enjoyable. And a lot of what we do, and it's not really captured here in the presentation, but a lot of what we do is trying to make the volunteers comfortable, arm them for success in their job. Right? You don't want to just throw them to the wolves like, hey Bob, you've never done AV, like go do AV, you know? It turns out Bob's done a lot of AV, so that's not really a good example, but Bob was even a roadie for a while, I think, technically. So, but we want to be able to educate people and arm them to be successful. And also, you want to feed them, and you want to clothe them, you know, and you want them not to smell bad. So you give them 2 staff shirts instead of 1 staff shirt, and they're very thankful. I don't know, the Sunday staff shirt's always been a grand mystery to me. Like, do you wear the Friday one or the Saturday one? Which is the least offensive? They both are terrible. They stand on their own. They're talking to you. Time to get rid of them. So we have all these different groups, and they're split up, and some of them, like the Hack Fortress team works for months in advance, because we actually take Hack Fortress on the road. We got to DEF CON every year and do it out there as well. The party team is a very informal thing. Like, there's not a rigid structure here. You know, I'm a big fan of only have as much structure as you need to get the job done. I think that's generally how we run it. Sometimes we have a little less structure than we need to get the job done, but we pick up are you telling me to pick up the pace?
No.
Okay.
I'm actually very impressed. I write these slides every year. He doesn't see them until we get here on stage, so I'm very impressed.
Thank you. It's one thing I'm good at is, you know, pulling shit out of my ass. So, woo, go me.
I'm just here to make corrections.
Yes. One thing I mentioned this during the opening, so I'm going to make sure she gets mic'd up because she doesn't want to be, but she's going to have to deal with that. We put a lot of structure around labs, probably the most out of anything. It's been a long-running thing. We're trying to put more structure around things like security. You know, what?
They're not on there.
Who's not?
Labs.
Oh, cool. Well, labs is a thing. You're aware of it. It's not on the list, but you know, even to
Really good at writing slides.
labs isn't real. It's all just pretend. It's just it's Wi-Fi, man. This Wi-Fi stuff is everywhere. You know, we're trying to put together more of a, I wouldn't call it a curriculum, but there's a handbook for the physical security staff and the staff in general, so they understand, you know, how to interact with folks and how to diffuse situations and deal with situations and who to call and that kind of thing. We're even thinking next year of having kind of a offsite ahead of time where we're going to do drills on, hey, if this situation happens, how do we handle it? We've got people who have been involved in large-scale event security at stadiums and things like that, and we're going to walk through, like, here are the different roles. Now, why don't you be this person, and we'll pretend this kind of thing happens and go through that. I'm actually kind of excited about it because I don't see a lot of that happening at other events, and I'm hoping we can blaze a trail, hurt ourselves badly, and then have other people do better than us later on. So we'll let you know how that works out next year. So, and hopefully there's no real emergencies and our fake emergencies. Emergeception. One person got it. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So next year, I guess, oh, no, this year we're back at the Hilton. This is the past, not going forward. So I'm sorry, I was confused. We're back at the Hilton. The space is good for this size, right, for 2,000-ish people. It gets crowded at times, which is cool, and then it gets empty at times, which is cool. We want to have this size where you get to meet people, you get to, geez, Heidi's phone's found the internet. You get to meet people, but it's not, you don't see the same people all the time. You get to meet new people as you roam around without feeling overly crowded. So, for any event, that's a balancing act of space and the number of people that you put in it and that kind of thing. And we found over the years what we're comfortable with for a variety of reasons is this size. So I know we get a lot of feedback about why can't you be any bigger? If you took more sponsors, you could be more bigger. If you sold more tickets, you could be bigger. Yeah, no shit, really, that's by definition. So we could be bigger. This is what we want to do, and this is what we're comfortable with. This is what we feel is best for the community and the way that we can engage the community. We don't want to be bigger because we would think it wouldn't be good for us and it wouldn't be good for you. And we encourage other people. If you want to throw a bigger con, we're happy to provide information, guidance, whatever we can to you. Go throw a bigger con. See how it works out for you. We've had this discussion internally for a long time. In the last couple of years, I think everyone's just settled like, hey, we're cool. 2,000, it's a good number. We did. She and I did have fairly serious disagreements about it. That they ended well. We're still here. The date tends to float a bit, which I used to feel a little bad about. And then RSA went and pulled the handles and went to freaking April or May this year. So screw it.
Dates next year or this year.
This year, yeah. So
For the record, we were the same weekend last year as we are this year.
Yeah.
Next year.
Although this year the NFL is 1 week lagged, so we're actually during the divisional playoffs this year. I'm sorry for those that care. Sports ball. Woo! Sports ball, go team! Yeah, I got it. And to be honest, we try to pick a date that works best for the volunteers and for us personally. Our Christmas and New Year's is this, right? It's like getting ready for this. I spent Christmas break in a garage, in the cold, burning these badges, and my son did the same thing. And I didn't see him because one of us was always in the garage for 4 days straight. So I don't know what you did for Christmas, but you probably weren't freezing your ass in the garage looking at a laser for hours on end. It's cool for the first 30 minutes, then it gets kind of mundane, but you can't walk away from it because the minute you do, that's when it blows up, right? That's never blows up when you're looking at it. So for the CFP this year, we had 182 total submissions. In general, they were all actually reasonably compliant. Our acceptance rate was 19.2%. And a word about our submission and selection process. We've always publicly stated we try to bias toward first-time presenters, right? And new material and code. So there are lots of good presentations that come across our, through the CFP process, good people, the material looks good, but maybe the person's presented a whole bunch already and is well known in the community. Maybe this material's already been presented. Maybe we can't tell if there's code. Maybe we can't tell if it's not a marketing pitch. There were some this year that were razor edge, and we got into internal debates about, is this a marketing pitch or not? And if we have those discussions, and usually we err on the side of caution because we don't want to punish you with something that turns into a straight marketing pitch, and we'll keep going down the list. So if you were to look at our internal selection process, you wouldn't look at the top 33 talks and everything below it would be rejected, right? We look at holistically everyone that's submitted, what we think needs to be covered, and we pick those talks. So I don't know what other organizations do, but that's what we do, and I think that's what's worked for putting together a good program. Again, when you look for first-time submitters, they aren't oftentimes in the top 19% out of 182 submitted talks. And so we'll take that risk and come down. Oh, we lost? They were ahead by 300 points. My son lost in Hack Fortress. Boo. Sir.
Can you explain the hat submission, please? Yes, please do.
Render Hat submitted a talk this year.
The very first submission we got this year for the CFP was a submission from Render Hat.
Don't you own Render Hat?
It didn't come from her.
It didn't come from me.
And it didn't come from the other people who may be involved in that. So we're all kind of confused about that. So there may be some attribution work if anyone wants to do it. Yeah, I guess we could have just done that.
You met somebody who follows Render Hat.
Oh, so one of the guys that works for me was over at the house. We just hired him, and he was over to our house in Renderman's hat. For those who don't know Renderman, he's a tall Canadian fellow, and he has a hat that many years into the hat's life, he auctioned off. I don't know, it's at the hotel room or something. He auctioned off the hat. Some people may have bought it. Now it lives at my house. It has its own Twitter account. So it's sitting up on top of Heidi's desk. And the guy comes in, he's like, oh, wow, my daughter follows Renderman's hat on Twitter. And I'm like, really, that's different? Like, what is your daughter into security? He's like, no, but she's really into Renderman. And I'm like, really into Renderman? Really? He's like, yeah, no, I could say I meant Renderman's hat. And I'm like, well, you know, he auctioned off the hat and Heidi had it. And he thought, like, Renderman was like a fictional character. And I'm thinking, like, are you confused with Slenderman? Like, I really don't know what's going on and why your daughter follows this, you know? Like, this doesn't make it. And he was very confused by the conversation because he realized Renderman was a real dude, Canadian guy, does InfoSec, who auctioned his hat off, and Heidi and other people have it. And he does not know why his daughter follows him, and I think he went home and had an honest conversation about who are you hanging out with at night? Anyway, track submission, we'll go to actually this slide. So if you look at the talk submissions over time, you know, we hit this peak in 2012, which frankly was the year before we started saying we're not going to give free tickets to, or give you the ability to buy tickets to everyone who submitted a talk that didn't make it. Things kind of ramped down, so I think we kind of got rid of some of the trolling after that, which worked out pretty well. And statistically, we saw about the same number as we saw last year. To be clear, 182 talks is a lot to review. We only have 35 spots, so it was, you know, it's a lot of work to whittle that down. When you look at topics, this is it for accepted talks. We've got, for those that can't see, the eye chart. Blue is hardware, red is miscellaneous, yellow is offensive, and green is defensive. This year, and also like 2013, we finally are kind of starting to turn the corner and get a lot of defensive talks on stage. And again, it's not to marginalize the offensive work that goes on. You know, hi, Jason. Jason Scott?
Yes.
Hi, Jason Scott. Jason Scott's watching the live stream. Hey, Jason Scott. Jason couldn't be with us because he's, I don't know, he took an arrow to a knee or some other meme that's really old. Died of dysentery. That's an even older meme, so we'll just go with that. That's a meme before it was a meme.
Also true, except he lived.
Oh, he did have dysentery. That's cute. And he did not die, nor did he have to take a wagon across the U.S. So anyway, we've got this mix. You can see it here, but again, just captured for posterity. How to hack selection. So, first of all, I mentioned this in the opening, follow the damn directions. It's really, seriously, we give you an outline. Follow the outline. Thing says, like, your bio should only be, what, 100 words, 150 words? People will, like, paste in, like, a book. Like, here's 1,000 words. Like, I'm going to take every third, okay? We'll just see, like, what pops out of that guy. Like, it was 3 times too long. I'll take every third. That's your damn bio. People will, I say this very upfront, like, spell ShmooCon right. Like, honest to God, there's one C. There's one C in ShmooCon, and it's in the con part, not the shmoo part. You know, and if you can't follow that direction, the rest is kind of out the window. And honestly, it's tough because we don't want the process to be very complicated, right? We want information, you know, kind of novel ideas and that kind of thing. And so we set a very low threshold. Like, give us an annotated outline, give us an abstract, give us some basic information, and we provide examples. Some people don't actually know what an annotated outline is, right? Like, imagine in your head an outline. Now imagine annotating that with extra words to help the reader understand what's going on. We've seen annotated outlines that the annotations were the same words as the words in the outline. Introduction, dash, introduction. My idea, dash, my idea. Like, fuck you, buddy. Like, I mean, the program committee has to, when they don't understand, they have to divine, right? And we don't like that. It creates risk for us as conference organizers, and those things tend to get punished. So the more verbose you are, the more you give us ideas of why this idea is important, you know, why it's interesting, why you actually know what you claim to know. There's people that would be like, dude, I know about cold fusion, and I'm going to give a cold fusion talk, and I have solved the cold fusion problem. Here's my bio. I'm like, well, if it's true, it's groundbreaking, but the 4 sentences that you use the term cold fusion in, and that's all the data you gave us, do not give us any indication that you know what you're talking about. So if you're providing a topic that is really cutting edge and is something that's outside your normal wheelhouse, you have to give us that confidence that you actually know what you're talking about. Does that make sense? Head nod, yeah. It seems like common sense, but out of 182 of these, there's some that common sense had absolutely left the frickin' window. Complete sentences, seriously, like 5th grade stuff, like please put complete sentences in. I won't bore you with all the horror stories. Guys wrote in like on Vicodin, like said, hey, I'm really high right now, here's a talk. All right, cool, dude. Like, thanks for the heads up, because the rest of it makes sense in context now. Anything to add to that?
Oh, God, no.
Okay, good. God, no. Okay, I am off the rails.
No, that was opening ceremony.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I thought he was going to start, like,
I think she did.
I mean, his interpretive dance thing. Have you seen that?
Uh,
Oh, my God.
Dance off.
Jesus. Anyway, so I'm back on target. Sales, so honest to God, sales still freak me out, but it's a little bit easier now that we have code that works. We're 3 years into rewriting the code.
How did they freak you out?
What?
He walks into the room about 30 seconds before noon, and he goes, okay, are we ready?
It's true, but it's largely denial. Like, I'm running around the house doing any random thing, like, today's a good day to paint the house. So I'm outside, like, la, not thinking about sales, It's freezing outside, so the paint's just falling right off the house, but whatever. That was my interpretation of me painting my house, by the way. So, but what happens is, when it goes wrong, and it's gone wrong, how many people have been in a sales that went wrong for ShmooCon? Yeah, you know the pain, right? Like, what the hell, guys? Like, I get in a moose cluster error. What does that even mean? Like, I'm waiting for some open source dude to like write some like CI/CD integration tool called the moose cluster. I would be like, oh, we already own that, dude, and it crashes all the time. When it goes wrong, it's just cleanup. But like, from a technical perspective, from a PR perspective, I mean, and it's like personally difficult to deal with when it goes wrong, because we get some angsty stuff. Like, seriously, people get angry. When it goes well, there's still angry people. When it goes wrong, everybody's angry. And it's tough to deal with. So thankfully, our cart's holding strong. It's literally just a single-threaded C++ library that runs, does its job. It controls a little state machine that handles the ticket sales and then exits. We can handle 30 times the load we get right now. Box doesn't even bat an eye. It's amazing. It is absolutely freaking amazing. So, yeah, please do not interpret that as a challenge. So we don't load balance or anything. It really works well. We did have feedback this year regarding the Capatcha and it being a little. Well, first of all, no one can spell weird, right? Like, this is like the worst word in the world. Like, type weird. It's right in front of me, but I-E. Damn it! It's too late. That was a very difficult round for people. And I think the biggest thing actually that came out of it was accessibility concerns. So people had, because there is this big push all at once, that if you have accessibility issues, you're hard of hearing, hard of reading, whatever it is, it's going to be difficult for you. Especially dyslexic people wrote in, a number of people said, hey, this is really tough for me. And I get that. So we're working through ways to try to make it more accessible for folks that can't be like right on the keyboard and making it make sense right there and then. We have some ideas. We're going to field test them. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but we hear you, people that have inquired about that. We're going to do what we can. Again, this is all stuff we home roll. We don't use anybody else. We're continuing to go that way for now. Who knows where we'll end up in the future. So we reserved, 1,400 tickets in 37 seconds total.
Your son doesn't want to be in.
Which son? Oh, the little one? Yeah, well, that's all right. He hasn't been to any talks this year. You see some stats. There's a lot of IPs, lots of unique emails. To be clear, people get really goofy, like, hey, my clock was synced to NTP. Like, I have my own cesium atom and stuff. Like, I was really ready, and it came 3 seconds late. Like, what's wrong with you? Your server wasn't synced up. She hits a button, and it says go live. Because in the past, when we've just automated it, and the server's way off the rails, and the load's at like 500, and the SSH session isn't responsive, you can't just call it off because your enter key doesn't actually reach the server for 10 minutes, or at least the kernel won't process it for 10 minutes, right? And by that point, like, all hell is broken loose. So if the server's in a bad state, we don't hit the go live button. So there's a manual go live button. Everyone gets their little reservation code, and then there's a period that you have to wait until you can buy your ticket, and that's when we review stuff. So the team is actually sitting back and we review the logs. We look at the statistics. We look at who got emails, what emails got tickets, what IPs they came from, how many IPs got lots of different tickets, and that kind of thing. Trying to look for shenanigans, right? Because the last thing we want are people harvesting these tickets and selling them en masse on eBay and taking away from people who really want to be here, people who are trying to play by the rules and that kind of thing. So we spend that hour trying to divine, is this a valid run? And so far, for the most part, it's been valid. And there are some groups that have gotten good at getting people together to get a bunch, and there's been little pockets of people gaming it here and there, but it's not an en masse kind of thing. Question? What? No, what? Why the hell, man? Like, yeah, certainly, like, it's a box. Like, how hard is it going to be to DOS a box, right? Like, I get myself my my lizard, what's the one that they're selling there? The lizard cannon. What the hell they call what the Lizard Squad called their cannon thing that they were selling? Lizard stressor. Like, you could aim the lizard stressor at it, and certainly it would take it out. Like, that good work. Like, I can do math too. But we hope that doesn't happen. But again, like, maybe it does sometime when we throw in the damn towel and we deal with it then. But please don't. Anyway, okay. Doctor. Oh, purchasing all three?
To be very clear, there's probably more. They just use the same email address each time. That's how we know.
We've had people, it's funny, like, we'll get people get a ticket like 6 years in a row and then don't get a ticket, and they think they have the magic touch or whatever, and I'm like, it's really just, it's a freaking FIFO, right? Like, that's all it is, and it's just your position in your FIFO. You got lucky a few times, and sometimes you roll the dice and you don't get lucky, and sometimes you get roll the dice three sessions in a row and you get lucky, so, yeah. Oh, I should repeat these for the people on the thingamabob. Why was the date of the third round of sales changed? We've had that third round, and I might be wrong.
So you are wrong, because you're going to talk about January 1st, but we changed that a couple years ago.
Okay.
Why did I change the date on the third round of sales? I think I changed it just to, the third round of sales, first of all, is very, very small compared to the other rounds of sales. That felt weird.
Okay.
My parents are in the room. Yeah. It's historically very, very small compared to the other rounds, and I'm trying to remember. David, where are you? Why did I move it up? It was because
of the date of the con.
Well, no.
It's going to be within a month,
Yeah.
and so we moved it so it's more than a month
I
out.
think last year when I had December sales, I did them like mid-December on the 17th or something like that, and I just wanted to increase the time between the last round of sales and the date of the con so people could have a little more time to arrange travel, make their hotel reservations. Also, the hotel block in theory was supposed to close like the day after the third round of the original schedule. This hotel is very nice. As far as I know, they've kept it open until today even. But that was really part of it. And just to get it done, because at that point, our lives have been really chaotic the last few months, and I just needed something to be done. So.
In fairness, I still thought it was January 1st.
Yeah.
So, it was like the day before the last round of ticket sales, and I'm like, well, we should probably think about January 1st ticket sales and whatever. And she's like, they're tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, I knew that. She's like, no, you didn't.
Remember that thing about 30 seconds before we go live, and he goes, are we ready?
Yeah, see? But I stress about it. So here are the numbers for the year. We had a lot of people check in this time, so 1,900 out of 1,923, so that's, you can read this as well as I can. The year that it snowed, we still had whatever, like 80-some% of the people check in. This year we had 90-some-odd% and change, so 95%, I guess. 58 speakers, 75 staff, 15 press organizations, probably accounted for like 20 press passes altogether, something like that. Sometimes they brought like a...
No, it's 15.
Is it? Oh, I thought there were little groups of press. Okay, maybe not.
It might be little groups.
The press, okay.
15 badges.
Okay, 15 badges. So same size. I mean, you can see the numbers here. We, at least the last couple of years, have been in that 2,000 range and been pretty happy. So we don't track who you are, but we also don't track secondhand ticket sales. Like if somebody wants to sell you a ticket, it's kind of on you and them. We will, keep an eye on for like what looks like straight up fraud and try to intervene if it looks super sketchy. I think this year somebody inadvertently sold someone last year's ticket.
No, they sold a ticket for this year and inadvertently sent them
Last year's ticket.
You know, and I'm getting these emails, and I'm like, just ask.
Right. Like we could tell from the ticket, we're like, that's last year's ticket, and then they're like, oops, I emailed you the wrong file. We even had we moved this year, and we had we notified our spot. Can I say this or no? I'm not going to give her.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we notified all the sponsors, like, hey, we need all your swag to stuff into bags ahead of time. Here's the address to mail it to. And we didn't really put in big blank tags like this is a new address. Well, we had some sponsors who have sponsored us for years, and so they just like looked at an email and sent it to that address, and they in turn sent it to our old address, which thankfully is still a friend of ours that owns our old house, and so he was able to intercept it and move it along. But they were like, well, on an email dated 10/14/13, you know, you said to mail it here. We're like, yeah, that was a year and a half ago, and on the email dated like 10/20/14, we said this was the address. So like, oh, well, other people might be confused about that. I'm like, I think other people can choke mail in the last year and a half. Anyway, we know eBay sales, we're not a huge fan of it, but this year, I didn't see a lot of stuff moving across eBay. Not like years past. I don't know if people are holding on to their tickets more or whatever. Did anyone buy a ticket off of eBay that's in here? No. I mean, in the past, we've had 1% or less move across. This year, I think it was in the even lower number than that. I take that as a good thing. There was a lot of community pressure. It was not from us. It was from the community against people selling for profit on eBay. And that, I think, it has worked, to be honest. There were some crazy guilt things that went on, like sell it at face value or donate the money that's over the amount or whatever. And by and large, that seems to have stemmed a lot of the secondhand sales, you know, at least the obvious gouging that was occurring. I guess we talked about this, so I probably don't need to talk about sizing anymore. Money, so you understand the size of the beast. Sponsorship, $156,000. Total ticket sales just shy of $250,000, so that brings it to about $400,000. Turns out, it's not cheap to run a con like this. Like, not screwing around. This is a nice hotel. I don't know if you noticed, it's not a Motel 6. We're not in Omaha, not to disparage Omaha. It's the second time I've referenced Omaha, and I clearly have a vendetta against it, but I'm not going to talk about it. Damn snakes. So, right, now you're all wondering, what happened to Bruce? And I'll come up with a story. It's not going to be true, but it'll be good. It costs a lot of money, but it doesn't cost that much money to run it, right? Like, I'll go through this, but 275,000-ish in round numbers so far that we've accounted for. It'll be higher than that.
I did this completely from memory, so I have forgotten whole categories of things that have been purchased right now.
So we don't feed you, right? But we do give you a lot of booze tonight. So that offsets not feeding you from a cost perspective. Not saying from a nutrition or ethical perspective or anything like that, but from a cost perspective. When you go to other events and you pay $1,000 or $2,000 to be in a nice hotel and get some swag bags and have fancy podiums with screens and shit like that, they're in the same order as we are when it comes to expenses. And the rest is just profit. Right? And I'm not saying I don't like the free market economy. I'm not saying that people aren't entitled to make money. I'm a big fan of capitalism. I like getting paid. But at the end of the day, you know, we try to do this for the community. And for, just so you know, as a community, to run this kind of event takes just shy of $300,000, right? So when you look at an event that charges 10 times as much as we do, we're cheaper than DEF CON, right? Like, I just realized that today. Like, we're $50 cheaper than, well, DEF CON was 200 or 220 this year. 220. Yeah, it's weird. And I'm not saying, like, I know Jeff's got to run that, and, like, you know, I mean, that's a big production, like, not screwing around big production, but and it's also cash, like, there's some, right, yeah, I love to see what hits the books. Like, I've always wondered that, like, are there just two slots like every other one? On the books, off the books, on the books. Oh, every other one's a different badge, I don't know. Like, some people get the nice ones, some people get the Staples ones that they just... Good to hear about that shit later.
Waiting for my phone to light up.
Yeah. So from a hotel space perspective, they make us pay up front still. We don't really, you know, we could get like a line of credit, so we don't have to do this, but we pay a lot of money up front, so we just don't have to deal with that crap with them. So we put down $52,000 already. It'll be at least another $50K, and that doesn't include the party.
Well, it does.
Ish.
Okay, let's go with ish.
Well, no, you said, because down here you listed...
I just wanted to...
Oh, the ish was down there.
And I wanted to just call it out as a big part of the expense. And to be clear, it's not all booze. You can get soda. It's all ages. Everybody can come. That's why we moved it to the hotel.
Yes, and I think it's worked out very well for us in the hotel. And to be frank, so we have an insurance policy. That's the name of that thing. One of the riders on the insurance policy is like the hotel has to like serve the booze and be responsible for the booze and be responsible for keeping you all sober enough to stand up and all that kind of thing, which I love. I don't want that responsibility, but that comes with a cost. I mean, so the hotel charges a lot for beer and wine, and not the least of which is because they have whatever TAM trained professionals and all that kind of other stuff. And we like you alive. We like the same number of people to leave as if showed up, if not more. Like births are okay, deaths are right out. Like there's just not. That's not allowed. Or in general, like, asexual, reproduction, you split in twain, like that's cool too if that's your shtick. I'm not here to judge. So that's a new one. That was just for you, Space Rogue. So swag, you get a lot of swag. It's about $90,000 when all is said and done. Bags aren't cheap. A lot of this stuff isn't cheap, but we try to have a high production value here. Again, it's not to hand you like a paper bag. I mean, if you wanted to do this on the cheap, we'd hand you a freaking paper bag and like a Xerox copy, or we'd find a lithograph or something and smell the Ditto ink or whatever, Yeah, dude, I would love to actually. We get a Ditto machine and people would just like slow down and walk past it. That's something we could do for next year, I think, actually. That's the badge. Oh, the badge smell?
Badges did come with an aroma, didn't they?
Someone called them an air freshener yesterday. It's like, but even the program, like I don't know, you probably don't do anything with the program afterwards, but I think it makes the event look more professional. The sponsors like to see their logos and color and stuff, and frankly, Heidi and our neighbor of ours that runs Pro Outsource, you see that logo throughout there in the thing. They put together that program, I swear to God, like in 2 days. Like it is unbelievable. Like there's just massive information in emails and all kinds of other things, and within 2 days there is a print-ready document, all set to go. Gets printed, we get the proof, boom, we're rocking and rolling. Can't be more than 48 hours. It is absolutely, yes?
No, I was just going to say, and we get a lot of support from this community, but the one thing that Bruce and I are so lucky to get as well is the support from our local community. In fact, 2 of my neighbors are here today for the first time in 11 years. There's Angela over there and Wendy's out there somewhere. So I'm just, we get a lot of support.
When they find our kids roaming around, they bring them back home. It's the little things.
Feed us.
Yeah. Prizes, equipment, we'll get into equipment here in a minute. Honorariums, credit card fees. Even though we still run our own credit cards, we still don't do it for free. And so, a chunk of the money goes to the credit card processors. We have a very odd relationship with our credit card processors, right? Like most people that have credit card accounts sell stuff all year round. We sell stuff for 3 frickin' days. Boop, boop. Just over 3 days, there's like this $300,000 of sales that occur. And that looks like fraud, like straight up, like that smells funny to people.
They used to audit us, like for 3 years in a row, they did an audit on us, and they would hold our money until they completed this. It was like the stupid 10-question audit, right? But now they're just like, oh yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
Amex is the same way. I spend like nothing all year, and then all of a sudden it's like $50,000, $60,000.
Yeah, we put the hotel on the Amex card, and like Amex, like I'm amazed. Like I'm always like, how many zeros will Amex allow? Like I don't understand. Like this is a thing. We do have event insurance. It's actually so our event insurance went up by $400, so 50%. I don't know why, but it's still $1,200 to insure all you people for 3 years. Oh, they got it wrong. Thank God nothing happened last year.
It's still cheap.
It's still cheap, $1,200, and if anything happens, like we have millions and millions of dollars worth of coverage. This is again not a challenge, like just to be quick, sharpen the bottom of the chair and flip it over. Ah! What was the question?
What do they insure?
What do they insure? So it's property damage, personal, physical, whatever a person gets damaged, is personal damage. I guess I don't know. General liability and 2 or 3 other things. There's like 4 or 5 different coverages that we have, and they're all like start at $1 million. I think like the property one's like $2 million, the personal injury one's like $5 million, and it's $1,200. Like It lets us sleep at night and not think someone's going to go take our house if one of you trips.
This can't let you go swimming.
Oh yeah, God help you, man. If there's water involved, it's done. Like, there's no way. Like, you might as well just assume everyone dies, right? Like, there's a pool, they're all dead. And then we have to pay estimated tax. So, yes?
I thought there was a question back there.
Oh, I can't see through the... Cyber insurance for the hotel? No, that's not a thing. Like, I'll be honest. Event cyber insurance would be, maybe that's our next thing. I'm going to start underwriting event cyber insurance. Everything will be an act of terror, and I won't cover any of it. Like, yeah, I'll start making insurance jokes next.
Please call your top tier the Spanish Inquisition.
Spanish Inquisition? I don't even get the joke. Like, nope. Nobody. Oh my God! Like we're old. Yeah, it's not a Simpsons reference. Sorry. I'll call it the Bart Simpson level. Boop. So what did we buy this year? So we bought new projectors this year. These ones are a little bit more flexible with resolution, and they're bigger. They are bigger. That was one of the things they showed up, and everyone's like, "Oh, we never actually looked at the physical dimensions of this device. Like, we looked at like the lumens and the input and the resolution, but nobody thought, and it's as big as Hugo. Like, oh shit. Like, oh, and it didn't come with bags either. So all our other ones come in bags. These are still in their boxes. So.
The truck was full.
Full, yeah, that's why the truck was full. We had to buy a Mac to support the streaming video stuff. The one room down at the other end doesn't have high def. The other ones have high def. So for the high def rooms, we bought these little devices from Livestream called a broadcaster, and like literally HDMI goes in, and like internet magic comes out the other end. I don't have to worry about an encoder. I don't have to do anything else. It's just a magic little box that streams to Livestream, and it's awesome because we used to screw around with these freaking laptops and like Adobe Media Encoder and all this other crap for anyone that's lived through that pain. Not pleasant. But the far room is still 10 minutes. You're gonna warn me? It's the last talk of the thing, dude. They have to go. I'll take care of it. Anyway, but the far room, we were concerned we weren't going to get HDMI from Ted, so we bought a Mac and a converter, and that shit didn't work today, so that room's streaming via Ustream with ads still. So I apologize to people watching on there that had to go to Ustream and watch all the ad-filled stuff. At least you got something, because we had nothing at 10, and at 10:02 we went to old school, went to the setup we had last year. We migrated to live stream from Ustream, because Ustream was, seriously, their pricing model was nuts. Yeah, but we were grandfathered in to their old plan, which was free, but you get shoved a lot of ads down your throat with that thing. You can't even do it anymore like that. They just make you pay. So anyway.
What do you guys think of the schedule cards? I'm only asking people. You like those? That's
Yeah, I've heard it.
That's a good idea. Okay, print them. Somebody email that to me so I remember. Thank you.
So when it comes to, so we bought this badge printer to print these things. So first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but there's like an unforgeable, ultra secure hologram thing on there, because I didn't want anyone forging this schedule. You could actually have the option to not print that. I'm like, no, print that. Like, that's pretty, that's.
I asked you not to print that on there.
Yeah, I just kept doing it. She asked me to take it off. It's still there. It's continuing the thread of I'm going to need a place to sleep later. So the problem is literally nobody makes a large format badge printer anymore. Like, one company made it and it was discontinued 3 years ago, and you can't get it. And anything else bigger than this, you're just printing plastic and doing custom die cutting. And as much as it would cool to have a custom die set up at my house, that's a little excessive. Like, I'll be honest, like, that's starting to get in the realm of stupid. So instead we just bought a laser cutter and laser cut the badges, because that made more sense. I guess I could have laser cut the schedule. Hey, maybe we can do that next. We could have done that. Then we need a large format printer. So anyway, the wood badge material. So for those that were asking, it's a maple on both sides with MDF in the middle. The MDF is what you smell because of all the resins and crap like that when it vaporizes. A laser actually sublimates the material, not like, I don't know, whatever else you think it might do, but so it turns it into a gas immediately, and then that gas can then fall back down and re-solidify as other random stuff that's not the original material. Like, you know, you can't just like vaporize your finger and have it go back to being a finger. It's going to be like other things, pain being one of them. So the smell and everything is due to that inner MDF material there. My fingers are still orange from handling all these things. A lot, dude. Seriously. So the filter we have.
That's what's wrong, Space Road.
No, none. So that filter we bought, it actually has like I don't know, like a 1.5 cubic feet of activated carbon. And it weighs like 40 pounds when it's clean, and at the end of it, it weighs like 80 pounds. Like it sucks up its entire weight in nasty stuff when it's done. I'm not at that stage, but it's amazing. Like there's science and then there's activated carbon. Like I just don't even understand it. So better than magnets. Go Juggalos. Sorry, ICP, few people get it. Anyway, every year we spend at least $150 on gaff tape because gaff tape is stupid expensive. Holy crap, this magical black tape, this low adhesion stuff that holds when you want, lets go when he doesn't.
This is like $5.
Yeah,
right there.
the rolls are literally like 20 some odd bucks a roll, and they don't sell it anywhere. You gotta order it online and whatever. Anyway. Granger's online. So there's about 100K left over, plus or minus 15%, give or take. Again, these are really soft numbers at this point. A lot, at the end of it, Heidi goes to a lot of other events and helps them out, so it helps pay for her travel. I don't know, someone who's probably been drinking with you somewhere. You know what, go to other events and go drinking? No, she doesn't. I stay home with the kids, and she goes out partying. I assure you, that's the way it actually happens. All the contests.
I was going to delete this slide. Just
Cruising. Okay, because we are running a little light on time. We had 47 sponsors this year. We do reserve the bronze level sponsorships for small and new companies, and we have kicked people out of bronze, like straight up. Okay. We've had companies that like, oh, we want to be a 4th-year bronze sponsor. Like, no, sorry, you've had your time, now you got to pay a little bit more. And it's not like our sponsorship's expensive, right? Like, I don't know what it takes to sponsor RSA, but it's not cheap. You know, what was bronze sponsorship? 2,000? $1,700 bucks. $1,700 you get a couple badges, you get a table, you know, out there, you get your logo and everything, you know. And what? Less than a ticket, a black hat, and you get 2 tickets and a table. Maybe just for personal use, right? You'd be like, Bob's sponsorship, you know, whatever the hell you want to do, sponsor yourself up. Even our platinum level sponsors were only, what, 12 grand? 12 grand this year. I mean, 12 grand, you get your logo here, you get it plastered everywhere, you get a whole lot of tickets, you get put in the nicest place, you know, whatever. For big companies, that is not really even a sponsorship. That's like sending a couple people to a conference, right? So we're still pretty cheap.
ignore that third bullet point. That was from last year. We accepted the same amount of sponsors this year.
Okay, same amount of sponsors. Got it. So we do try to push the sponsors to do something different. And actually, a student approached me today who said, look, I know a lot of other students that are here that went to the sponsor tables, and part of what they were trying to do is either like talk to people about jobs or talk about internships, and none of the sponsors, like maybe 1 or 2, had even a cogent answer about that. And I thought that was an interesting idea. Like we could encourage the sponsors.
Can you
Like,
email me that too?
there are going to be people who are interested in internships and jobs, and that's probably a good thing because this is a pretty hard industry to hire for, so maybe you should consider having people here who understand what your openings are and what your internship programs are like. I made my internship program up on the fly when I was at Penn State recruiting a year ago. I was like, there will now be a Ponce Tech internship program, and you will be the first person. And this woman was like, I can't tell if you're trolling me or not. And I'm like, we're a small company, we're just going to do it. And I think a lot of the smaller companies have that same kind of philosophy, but the big boys are out there, they have programs, they can figure this stuff out. So anyway, is that really the last slide?
I told you I edited.
Holy crap. So here's the deal. It takes a lot of money to run the con. It takes a lot of effort to run the con. But if it's not working, or there's something we could do different, we'd like to do it differently. And we're open to all possible feedback, right? It doesn't mean we'll act on it, but we'd like to hear it. If we hear it from a bunch of people, then it starts to really resonate. Again, like the accessibility with the ticket sales process, we heard it from a bunch of people this year. Solving it's not going to be easy, right? Like it's not something, you know, this is something we wrote, and this is something we're responsible for, and this is something we're responsible to the community for. So we're going to try to figure out how to do this. And it may cause ticket sales become unstable again. That's frightening. But if it's the right thing to do, that's what we're going to go do. And you know, so I think in general, you know, we ask a lot from you, from attendees. Not the least of which is please don't hurt yourself or the hotel. God, that's like the worst. Probably yourself. The hotel would be a second. But you know, you should be asking a lot from us, right? And again, there's organizations like B-Sides who are doing this like on the free, except they have to go grovel to sponsors. And I use that term nicely because it's hard to go get money from sponsors, especially when you're like a B-Sides in a new town where you haven't been doing it before and whatever. And there's people like in Vegas, they have the luxury of being alongside some of the big conferences. They have the luxury of being around a while, but then you get something like B-Sides Charm, trying to start up in Baltimore, like, man, they're just trying like heck to get sponsorships. We're in the nice position of like, we know we're gonna get sponsors, we know we're gonna sell out, but on the flip side, we're still relatively cheap compared to the big conferences, right? So as much as you hold us accountable for doing things right, when you go to a big event, they should be super accountable. If you go to an event that costs 10 times more than ShmooCon, they should be 10 times more accountable to doing good things for you and doing good things for the community, right? Like, that's how I view it, because they're taking...
Not pointing fingers.
I'm not pointing fingers. I mean, 10 times it could cover a lot of conferences. I'm not pointing fingers at $1,500 conferences in particular that may be in the desert.
Waiting again for my phone.
Oh, yes. But was there a question?
Well, I was just going to say, with B-Sides, like, lots of vendors sign up, but not a lot of vendors pay.
Yeah,
It's a hard thing to
See,
collect.
I have a
We have
rule
to have a
about that.
collection agency, like, we need to get, like, you know, a few Italians involved or something.
Jeez, not to be all racist, but, so,
Irish, anybody.
what the hell? Oh, God, how do you get control of this? So the question, if I form it into a phrase of a question, is the B-Sides community has a particular problem with the fact that there are a number of sponsors historically that haven't paid. And I've certainly heard more than kind of anecdotal evidence that this is a problem. Heidi takes a very hard line on that, right? If the sponsor hasn't paid, they don't get their barcodes and their logos don't go on anything, right? Period. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Sometimes
Very nice about it.
we're very nice. I mean, we're not grumpy about it. It's just a matter of fact. Like, if you haven't paid, your stuff doesn't, you don't get anything. You don't get in, you don't get any of the value that you think you're going to get. Period. And I don't know if there's a way in the B-Sides universe, because I mean, you guys have to have that money to exist, right? Like, we have the luxury, like, if we throw a sponsor off the boat, like, it really doesn't impact the bottom line. If you throw a sponsor off the boat, man, it may put the event in jeopardy. So, you know, I imagine you have to kind of keep pulling that thread a lot more than we do. But I would encourage across that community, like, take a super hard line. You know, people don't pay, they don't get in again. You know, I don't know, that's just my proposal. And I think even like with press, we've been able to take a hard line as well. Like, we have a luxury that not a lot of other events have, which is to say no, right? And again, B-Sides, you can't say no a lot of times. Other smaller events of regional cons, I see Circle City Con represented like in a big way right here by people who I know are not from Indianapolis. But you will be there. Yay, Circle. Is it your, where's your t-shirt? Oh, okay, anyway. They have a much harder time saying no. And that's something, again, I think, you know, we've tried to backstop where appropriate. I know there's been a number of regional cons that Heidi's been involved in helping, especially in times of you know, distress, at least providing some mentorship and sometimes, you know, financial support, supportive gear, support of our time, that kind of thing. Because I know it's tough. And you know, I feel privileged to be able to run this conference. I know Heidi does as well, with the amount of support we get from the community, but also kind of the deterministicness of it all. Like, we know what the money's going to be in, we know what the money's going to go out, and assuming nothing too crazy happens, and it has to be pretty crazy, it's not going to really have a dramatic impact on the event. So, and I think that's another reason why we feel really responsible to you as a community, because if it's that slow pitch of a softball effort for us, that it's obvious that this is what's going to cost and this is what's going to come in, we should really be able to do it right. Right? So you should hold us accountable. So again, if you have feedback, am I scaring you?
Kind of are.
Okay, good. So, but be nice about the feedback, please, because I think I'm freaking her out that people are going to say really nasty things.
No, feedback's really important, and we get a lot of it every year, and I really do try to respond to as much email as I can. And we've already started to get emails into feedback. Has anybody written me yet? Because I think I've responded to most of the ones I've gotten already. Maybe.
Janice.
Yes, I did, Adam, right? I took my glasses off, so I'm not sure. It really does help us, and we take it into account each and every year. And in fact, when we really start ramping up again in October, I go back and I read all of those emails. And tomorrow, when we are finished with this and we're at our sort of after party, we generally do a debrief there too, and that's when I get the feedback from all the staff. And usually Todd or Bob is sitting there, and I get these list of notes at the end of the night. It's about this long, and I fold them up, and I put them on the shelf, and I take them down in July, and I go, okay, let's make this better.
Right.
And I mean, we do it every year, and hopefully we're making good changes, but.
Hopefully. So again, we appreciate it. Thank you to people on the live stream. If you have questions, we'll take them afterwards, but I want to get this now so we can flee by 6 o'clock and make sure we can retool for everything else. So,
Bobby wants to know who got the Jaden Smith bag of crap.
anyone in here get the Jaden Smith bag of crap? He literally put a picture. He was really excited. So,
I mean, like, I was like, first of all, I asked him who Jaden Smith was. Yeah. But he was like, very excited.
Who's Jaden Smith?
yeah, I don't know. So there's two major events that occur before the con starts. One of them is t-shirt rolling. So this is just straight logistics, okay? When you sell t-shirts, what's the worst thing to have? A box of goddamn t-shirts, right? Because you're like, large, large, medium, small, large, large. Damn it! Shit, start over. You know, and you're digging through, and then it gets worse. Every time you dig through the box of t-shirts, there's more entropy, right? It's a great random number generator. It's a really crappy way to sell t-shirts. So in advance of the con, people come to our house or our office or whatever.
T-shirt rolling, that was an idea we actually stole from Nauticon.
Yeah, Nauticon used to do this, and so all the t-shirts get rolled up and put a little banner on them that's color-coded so we know what size, if it's men's or women's. And then they all get put on those shelves in there that we got at Borders when Borders went out of business. We bought those things for like 50 bucks a pop. And they can just reach around, turn around, grab the orange is a large, hand it off, go next, 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 next. Kind of the same way we handle the registration process. Like the on-site registration, fast. Right? Like you come in, scan the barcode, you get the bag, get out. There's no pomp and circumstance, you don't have to do anything else. I mean, I think in general, that's worked very well for us for years and years and years. Kaz and his crew have written a great system, so that's worked out fantastically. The other thing that happens is bag stuffing. So all these bags have to be stuffed. And so our house is littered with boxes a week before the conference. So on Wednesday before the con, oh my God, like the UPS guy gets grumpy.
There was a number of you in the audience who were there at either bag rolling.
Bag stuffing.
Rolling and bag stuffing. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So one side of a room gets filled with empty bags, the middle is a table full of all the swag, and the other side are just people ready to take the bags and put them in a box and run them out and put them on the truck. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we hit go, and at some point people get tired and you shove pizza and beer in their mouth and then they keep going. And in some years it's taken till like 1 a.m. This year we got it done in 4.5 hours. It was a damn miracle. I'm still convinced some of you got empty bags, but that's a cast. I mean, there's 20 people at our house doing that. I mean, it's a lot of effort, a lot of heavy lifting, like not screwing around, heavy lifting of boxes and things like that. Yeah, Rick Farina and a bunch of other people. I mean, it's awesome. But that kind of prep work we've learned to do. You do it in advance, so you don't have to do it on site. There's a lot of conferences that'll show up a couple days in advance and do a lot of those logistical things on site. But that means
doesn't work for us though. I mean, we got kids in school. You know, we got.
Right. This isn't our day job, right? So we do it in a way that is commensurate and works with our friends that are going to participate and with us as a family. But those things like t-shirt rolling make everything go a lot smoother later. So
Thank you.
yes, thank you to all the t-shirt rollers and the bag stuffers and all that. So anyway, on that note, now I'm officially done. So what, David?
You were explaining the Jaden Smith bag of crap.
Oh, Jesus, that's where I started this
There's only
conversation.
one explanation for that, and it is I have a 12-year-old who is asking to go to the HFC auction. The same 12-year-old who printed out the picture of the Jaden Smith and thought it was really
The 12-year-old thinks like this is the most amazing time of year. This is better than Christmas because first of all, everybody in the house swears all the time, you know? So he gets to sit around and be like, wow, I just learned like 8 different words to use, not around mom and dad. But also like he gets to interact with people that he really enjoys interacting with, and he gets to be actually part of the community. And to him, part of the community is like trolling people in the bags of crap. So like he like puts troll faces in there and Jaden Smith and all this other stuff. And
What did he do? Yeah, he did put a
put a picture of himself in there or stuff like that, you know, so.
Who got that bag?
Yes. And
Got the bag of all of the badge punches.
I actually took a picture of him. I was sitting right next to him when he opened it.
someone got a bag that was full of all the little chads from the badges.
I did put a ticket in that. In that
Yeah,
bag.
but he got a ticket too, so it's a fair trade. You didn't get a t-shirt, you got a ticket to ShmooCon and a bunch of burned wood.
Well, he got the option to buy it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to say now I'm officially done for the 3rd time, so that makes us official. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. I'm out. Thanks. Bye.